All right. So, everyone, welcome to our co-hosted podcast with none other than my lovely partner, Kerri. This is obviously going to be our first attempt at this, so please keep in mind that we're trying to get things done the best way possible. But
Rookies.
exactly, pretty much. We're rookies at this, but we're definitely going to try to do our best for sure. No question of a doubt behind that. This is our more say quote unquote get to know us episode, pretty much. And with that, I would love for you, Kerri, to very briefly, in a nutshell, as I love to always say, introduce yourself.
Sweet, for sure. So my name is Kerri Kuzbyt. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Born and raised there. I attended my university and played Canadian Division One in my hometown for the University of Winnipeg. And then I did 4 years professionally overseas in Australia, Spain, and my two biggest years in Germany. And currently, I am a player development skills trainer residing in Glasgow, Scotland. I got sought out to head up the female player development here, working alongside the U14 National Academy athletes, as well as finding those athletes to put on a pathway towards GB and further adventures within the sport. So that is me in a nutshell.
Wonderful, wonderful, Kerri. Well, I mean, obviously, you have this amazing, amazing background, and I mean, I just fell in love with it anyway the moment that we met. So I mean, it shouldn't be no surprise that hopefully our followers that intentionally and hopefully will be growing in the near future will catch on to that as well. Um, with that said, I think we should head in on over to how the flow of this thing is going to work. So, for those of you that are pretty much kind of like joining in for the first time or that really are going to be hopefully full-time subscribers later on. The idea here is that both Kerri and I basically are going to go through a bunch of questions, but we want to keep it as naturally flowing as possible. So, with that said, I'm going to hand over the opportunity to Kerri first and basically go over things. But before I do that, naturally, I'm going to be doing my own thing. I'm going to be asking Kerri a bunch of questions. And so back and forth, we'll end up with this circumstance. And hopefully by the end of an episode, it'll give you enough insight on what the theme of the episode was, and we'd recap on what we went through. And presto changeo, that'll be it. So with that, Kerri, so obviously, I mean, as I mentioned before, you've got this impressive background and you come from more of an athletic performance and coaching side of things, and you had this kinesiology
Yeah,
aspect to it
kinesiology.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So, from your perspective, can you share with us what really inspired you to pursue this career path and any experiences that really shaped your journey to this point?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'd always been athletic, always into sport, and I knew even after my playing career, I want to stay around the sport in some sort of capacity. And I actually did go, like, I got my degrees in kinesiology, as you said, and really, really interested in sports science and all of that. And I actually became a high school phys ed teacher. And so all the training that I was doing as an athlete to then pass on the knowledge that I really wish my 17-year-old self would have known with regards to the weight room, nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
psychology. Psychology was my minor. And then how that, as I grew older in the sport, the mental side of that and performance. So it was kind of always there in that field that I just gravitated towards and just absolutely had a passion for.
Mm-hmm.
And what made me decide to essentially pivot and leave teaching, but to further pursue teaching in a different capacity as a player development coach, starting my own business, coming out here and educating athletes on all those things that I want to pass my knowledge, the stuff that I learned late, to provide them earlier and more time with. And that is what gives me the utmost sense of purpose in life. And I wasn't quite getting that with teaching,
Hmm.
just with the different types of athletes and people. It's not for everybody to a certain degree. So I just had to find those athletes like myself when I was younger who wanted all of that information and just to grow into the potential with what they could have and become educated on. So that's why I kind of really picked the field, just through my
Hmm.
personal experience and how it made me feel, not only as an athlete, but more so what it taught me as a person and who I am becoming within this world. So, yeah.
Nice, nice, wonderful. And then, I mean, since you were so gravitated towards kind of shaping athletes,
Mhm.
then can you then maybe kind of maybe give me insight on, so you were assuming again that you were kind of like in creating programs for athletes, obviously.
Mhm.
So can you elaborate a little bit on that then? So I mean, so how were you dealing with the whole training philosophy of things and um, tailoring the programs, so to say? I mean, what kind of things were you looking at? I mean, did it need any
Mhm.
kind of specifics,
Yep.
or how were you pretty much going through those?
Yeah, so even from like the past in the phys ed kind of realm, and me as a teacher, it was
Hmm.
what are these kind of fundamental movement patterns and kind
Hmm.
of competencies with physical literacy that I could provide these individuals and these people, ways in which that they could move their body in a functional manner as well as in a sustainable one for a healthy active lifestyle.
Hmm.
That's no different to now when I'm doing player development. And specifically, as I continue to dive deeper and deeper and learn into skill acquisition, it's all about movement patterns and coordination and organizing yourself in the most functional ways possible that's best for your body, because your body is unique to you and how it moves and how it's built, which is very different than somebody else. So for me, when
Hmm.
you're in front of me, I have to understand as much as I can with how you move, the way with which you prefer to, and then the way with which you want to move. That's where we got to get to be. So
Sure.
easier you kind of are in, I would say, exposure to different movements, different sports, all that sort of stuff, your ability to acquire something else, a different coordination or find that solution will be a bit easier. And then if not, it's not impossible. I firmly believe every skill can be taught, every skill can be learned. It's just the length and how much time you need in it. So understanding your background, seeing how you move, even
Hmm.
understanding psychological aspects of coming from a different maybe culture, a different background, all of that plays into a factor for me to understand where you are and then meet you so that you could then get that skill that will then lead you to the other skills and proficiencies in those movements. So at the end of the day, it's really a problem and a puzzle in front of me that I love to solve
Hmm.
and work with to get them to where they want to be.
Nice, nice. So I mean, could you also then say it's kind of like not just looking at individuals as just solving puzzles, or let's say placing them into the
Mm.
circumstances that really do fit them best, but at the end of the day you're trying to give them a holistic solution so it really does fit in with what they want to achieve. Would that be right to assume?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Because there's no one way to doing something, especially with the more modern contemporary approach to training that I take on. If you put somebody in a situation where they don't even have the abilities or
Mm-hmm.
they see those kind of opportunities, yeah, they're not going to be able to do that skill. And it doesn't mean that they can't do the skill. It's just they need something beforehand in order to see that as an opportunity. So, yeah, it's more so kind of letting them figure out what works best for them.
Got it. Got it. Sounds good. Sounds good. Wonderful.
I want to ask you, okay, with your very unique
Sure.
background in, analytics and, statistics, because stats and numbers, they're all over the place in this world.
Hmm.
So, it's very unique with regards to how you ended up merging business and stats into the sport, and into basketball. So, what made you see how analytics could completely change how the game is approached from both a technical and tactical perspective, not just for coaches and how they scheme against opponents, but also how they recruit players?
Ooh, that would be a long story, but I mean, again, my favorite quote, as it goes in a nutshell. So I mean, I really realized early on that, I mean, in terms of changing the way the game was approached, insights in terms of how players really did perform and game strategies linked to them, um, they have patterns and they really end up being seen in terms of trends that you can visibly use to try to scout players. So as soon as I figured that data driven approach pretty much out, and recruiting, not just by just looking at a player's highlights or just kind of understanding, okay, XYZ player can really do this best or do this not so well, it really gave me an opportunity to rely much more on understanding how the feedback I see in numbers and verbalize that to coaching staff really could make sense. And it's even to this day that same link. I mean, a lot of the analytics guys that do their jobs the right way in either the NBA or internationally, even they do their jobs really well. And I pretty much kind of tried to be the forebearer of how that really played out. I mean, I was one of the few guys that really came up through the ranks, and in the NBA, we really tried to get an understanding as a scout how I can really relate the numbers to the player development people, eventually speaking. And that gave me an understanding of even maybe to be able to understand how, from a player's perspective, really things did matter.
Yeah, because like from me hearing that as a player development person, yeah, if I see a stat where, hey, you're 25% from the 3-point line, we got to get you to 30%. That's valuable information and a metric that I use and that, yeah, the player could see and
Mm-hmm.
definitely could see how, it could even provide more opportunities for athletes. Do you think that that's the case? Because I know, and I was that athletes, well, we always look at our numbers because we're always thinking, what's it going to show? What's it going to reveal? Like, so do you think it's
Mm-hmm.
given more opportunities to athletes?
Well, in a sense, yes. But I mean, again, I think it's good to recognize certain things. I mean, for player developers or even players to be able to understand clearly what their performance is about,
Mm.
don't just judge them on metrics because that's never going to give you a clear, holistic picture of what a player really is about, obviously. But I mean, naturally, when we just look at the encore performance of anybody that basically goes through playing a game, and then we try to recognize what they've done good or that they're trying to improve on or minimize mistakes towards, then try to verbalize it in a very attractive way so that not just the player developers are trying to get to a better point from point A to point B, so to say, but the players themselves too understand that, all right, so a 5% increase in what I do good can make a distance of me making XYZ amount more to get me and my family to XYZ circumstance way better and way faster. I
Yeah.
mean, if you put it into those kind of perspectives, um, then eventually it's going to make much more sense to them. And it really does impact their way of playing the game even more because players, as we know, I mean, they're not just robots on court, obviously. And I mean, we're dealing with human beings every single time.
Mhm.
So we need to figure out how we need to push the buttons in that sense. So if it visibly leads to more opportunities, then obviously it's worthwhile taking that approach by all means. And I would definitely not say don't look at the traditional metrics or stuff that pretty much showcases everything just on the core perspective. Try to look at intangibles in such a
Mhm.
way that it really does make sense and it's really relatable on both ends. So for the player developer as well as for the athlete.
Yeah, it's just like everything in the world. You could use it like the tool could be powerful in a good way or a bad way, just like social media, your phone, all that. And it's how you use that and where you need to get it to. Yeah,
Precisely, precisely. That said, I've got two more questions for you, my lovely partner.
go for
So,
it.
um, when you think about balancing physical training with mental fortitude or
Mm.
in any other way, uh, it's crucial for athletes, obviously. So, how do you integrate mental conditioning into your training programs?
Mhm.
And why do you really think it's essential for athletic performance?
How I do so is essentially giving them a bunch of different problems to solve. And what I mean by that is I present them with challenges. In order for
Mm-hmm,
learning
mm-hmm,
to occur, there has to be a challenge and there has to be interest. So if you don't present the athlete with a challenge, with a problem to solve, they won't get better. There will be no learning of a skill. But the biggest thing also is that it leads them to kind of stumbling upon a very messy approach to training and one with a lot of failures, a lot of mistakes. But each mistake, each error is teaching you something and leading you towards the more functional solution, the thing that the answer that you need. And I'm not going to give it to you just like traditional more style coaches, where it's more lecture, you strip away the independence and the autonomy of the athlete.
mm-hmm,
And mention it prior to, they're not robots out there, but yet we actually see a lot of athletes that are in robotic, repetitive, rehearsed behaviors. And that's just simply with how they train. And so not having a challenge, not presenting them with a problem, but saying, maybe try this or this could work, and having them just explore and kind of create their own, because at the end of the day it doesn't matter how the ball goes in, it just that it goes in. So me and the approach into that training and giving them that kind of environment brings a lot of mental kind of, head talk and why aren't I putting this ball in? Like, what can I do? Nothing's going right. All those things that will happen in a game, all those things that will happen in life when something isn't going right one day, all of a sudden it rains, it pours. So the more that you could just become acclimatized and get used to having to face challenges, having to stumble upon the way, maybe find a way and then get detoured and then stumble again and then go again. Subliminally, it's just allowing them just to kind of immerse themselves into that's life. You're going to find a way one day. It's going to be good. You're going to have a good shooting day one day. You're going to have a good game one day. Next game, maybe not so good. Other time, maybe it really tanked. So just constantly presenting them with problems, with challenges, but then giving them that safety and that environment to say, no, you're okay. It's okay. Fail. Go and fail. Um, because that's just going to lead you towards
mm-hmm,
less failure. So that's kind of how I approach it, the mental aspect. And of course, there's other things where I could explicitly give them, say, hey, you only have two shot opportunities. You got to make the one. And then we're bringing in those psychological kind of perspectives and trying to represent them and simulate them. Or maybe it's like game competition wise scenarios. You have 5 seconds left, you're down by one. So it's putting them just into that mindset, and also just especially with shooters as well, like telling
mm-hmm.
them specific makes, or you got to end on this certain make. It's got to be a swish, it's got to be a Brad, it's got to hit the front of the rim. All that is just allowing them to build a lot more robustness
Mm-hmm.
into
Mm-hmm.
their playing style and allow them just to ensure that when they do face adversity, they are equipped with that. It's not something unfamiliar.
Got you. Got you. To me, that does make so much sense, to be honest. I mean, it makes so much sense to the point where it even gets me to think. I mean, like sometimes when I try to formulate a training
Yeah.
or I try to create so-called restrictions
Mm.
for players to really go through a
Yeah, or
really,
constraints. Yeah,
I mean,
constraints.
pretty much, but I mean, it's like you try to put them in circumstances where they psychologically have to suffer to really put the ball through the hoop.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that also leads them to the point where they do really eventually grow into what they should be doing better anyway. So it really does fit in with what I would pretty much think moving forward does make sense a lot as well for athletes in general too.
Well, and very
Wonderful.
important, it's very important though, just to even go back to that word, like kind of like suffering, is that I
Hmm.
do tell them, like, I want you to have a manageable and reasonable level of frustration here.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
being able from a skills trainer standpoint, having that optimal kind of challenge zone, you don't want it to be too difficult so that it's
Hmm.
discouraging. So
Hmm.
you don't want like them not to succeed less than 50% of the time. But at the other end, you don't want them to succeed more than 80% of the time, because then that means they're not challenged. And then that means they are not learning. So from my standpoint, it's finding that and turning that dial to have that optimal zone to have them in.
Hmm.
Um, but ensuring that, yeah, you shouldn't make every shot. If you're making every shot in a workout, you're
True,
not doing something right. So it's too comfortable, and the game is not comfortable. Life is not comfortable.
for sure, for sure. I'd like to ask you the final question for today. Um, so with the ever evolving landscape of sports science and what the future trends really uphold, so what do you see in terms of athletic training? I mean, how are you preparing to incorporate these advancements into your programs?
The biggest thing that you just said right there was athletic training, athlete. Um, my business I named Unbounded Athletes. And
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, um, athletes are adaptable, players are predictable. You're never a basketball player in front of me. You don't just want to be a basketball player. And something that I've seen in these younger generations, and that's kind of gotten lost, is that
Hmm.
they just specialize way too early. There is no diversification and kind of generalizing, exploring, going and playing a different sport, even just going outside. Like I remember growing up with my brother and all my friends, elementary, like we would just go outside and we'd throw a football. We would go on the monkey bars. We would like
Hmm.
swing a
Hmm.
golf club, kick a
Yep.
soccer ball. And then we have our main sport per se until after 16. That's when you should really kind of specialize into a sport. But we were gaining all those different movement patterns. We were finding all those different solutions, just taking our body and having them become familiar with different ways that it can move, it could coordinate. And not only did that, and it has led to improving to lead to less injuries, but you then, as I mentioned at previous, how you currently move and how you want to move, how fast that occurs is how much do you already know? How much does your body have exposure to into that experience, that physical experience? So even in the weight room or just training, getting your body to understand and get into certain positions, whether it's just a body weight squat, deadlift, something, all of that, your body is like taking in like analytics,
Hmm.
but from a more so kind of physical standpoint where it has now that thumbprint or that chip or that code in you, that now in a skill that I'm going to present to you that's new, there's a little trace in there. So being able to have all those different types of movements and exposure to those qualities, balance, coordination, whether you're just going tumbling and playing wrestling, all of that sort of stuff, learning how to fall, it all translates and it's all essential with how athletes acquire skill and the rate at which they do. And so the best players in the world are the most skillful, and those most skillful ones are the most athletic. So for me, I believe a lot of athletes and a lot of players need to be a lot more athletic and exposed to the athlete that they actually are. And which is kind of what I always incorporate into my training, and having them experience the, you want me to do what? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
go try,
Hmm.
jump over a mat, go try and hold yourself in a teddy bear stand. There's always a purpose for it. And it's just allowing them to understand and gain those athletic qualities. Because at the end of the day, if you could become, a lot more coordinated and you develop dexterity, so your ability to find a solution no matter the situation, that
Hmm.
ultimately translates to the game. Um,
Nice, nice.
yeah.
I mean, it is such a changing field. I mean, I think athletes these days they do, again, unfortunately they suffer because I mean certain the differentiation between this whole old school and new school of looking at
Yeah.
things. I mean, it's an unfortunate fact, but I mean, it's also timeless to a point. I mean,
Mhm.
it is just there, and we try to teach athletes to do something the best way possible, but they also try to figure things out for themselves. And in that process, when they don't get it, when the light bulb just doesn't go on, so to say, and you just try to tell them, you know what, go do something else. Go try to
Mhm.
figure it out another way that does make sense to you.
Mhm.
I wish they would just kind of be able to figure it out in such a way that, you know what, don't miss out on also being a kid. Don't miss out on just the simple things in life.
Mhm.
And I mean, it just kind of hits home to me very, very easily to that point.
Well,
I
and
really love hearing that from you.
and and with that though, like how you even said it, like it hits home for you, like you have that feeling, those positive memories, those maybe
Hmm.
happy times and joyous. And when you expose athletes and players to different learning contexts, like go outside of the court, go do something, there's so much more joy. It's fun because it's something new. So then they get lost into it. Um, but then at the end of the day, too, like don't let the game, if you had a bad game, ruin everything else in life. So that's why it's so important. And I experienced that. I wish I experienced it a bit earlier, where you want to separate yourself from the court, because as much as people go to the game to escape life, you also want to go to life and other things to escape the game sometimes. So I think that's extremely invaluable, not only from your skill perspective, but psychologically as well. So I kind of want to segue into it with kind of that psychological aspect,
Hmm.
um, with regards to, you wrote a paper once,
Yeah.
and the title,
Yeah.
I got to hit this
Woo.
title: The Marketing Strategies International Basketball Federations Use in Order to Develop the Game Within Developing Markets. Now,
Yes.
strategies, development, market, we're thinking, then is an athlete truly a human being, or are they just something, an intangible? So could you
Hmm.
elaborate on the strategies that the federations kind of use to kind of attract and retain those players and establish that culture compared to the North American system?
Well, that paper takes me back a long time. I mean, to be honest with you, I like had to read through it even before we had this talk. So I mean, it's been that long, really, but still, yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is that even to this day, I mean, we're in 2024, but not a lot has changed in terms of international federations and how they really create engagement inside their own communities and how grassroots really development is um, attractive outside of the North American system. I mean, it's to me, it's unfortunate because the North American system would supposedly should be the ideal by which everything is upheld. I mean, basketball is developed and it was created in North American environment. And I mean, when Dr. Naismith initially created the game, it was for the purpose of athletic um, development in itself. I mean, it would allow for anybody that's looking to further on their skills to be able to use the game, to be able to
Mhm.
move on from there. Well, it's not the case in North America. I mean,
Mm.
it's way more commercialized, it's way more transient, as I would say,
Yeah.
and it leads to less player retention and loyalty is not there.
Yeah.
And this really is very, very different, as you already see right now in Scotland yourself.
Mhm.
And what I practically see throughout the course of Northwestern Europe as well. I mean, take it from Finland all the way to Denmark, from Sweden all the way to the Netherlands. I mean, communities are trying to build up a format where they're trying to put the athlete at the center of attention of everything that they try to achieve. And from there, build out strategies that really do make sense for 4, 5, 6 year old kids. And they see those athletes as the marketable product.
That's crazy because they're five and
Yeah.
six. And so like
Yeah.
I've seen it out here too, like where the kids under 14, like they're just caught up in numbers and stats. And it's a thing, it's like in Canada as well, hockey, like your 5 and 6 year old is going to be the next NHL player, these parents think. So like, do you then believe that analytics should actually not be at certain age levels just so that development could be, tailored appropriately and
Yep.
avoid all of this?
In a way, because I mean, um, something I firmly believe in. I mean, okay, numbers don't lie, but
No.
when you look at the holistic perspective of it, numbers should also not be the only thing that you uphold a player towards. I mean, there are bunches of intangibles that basically players end up having at the end of the game, maybe at the
Mhm.
lowest level or at the highest level. But obviously, I mean, when you look at it from sheerly an analytics perspective, then um, don't just uphold a player just sheerly based on numbers, period.
Right. Now, but what happens, because I've seen it before, or even coaches and all that, where an athlete does have the stats. So the numbers are there, but yet they're still going unnoticed. So what is then preventing these players? Because yeah, like you said, numbers don't lie, and I say that as well. Like analytics, it is part of the game, but also at the higher levels, we as coaches and practitioners know, yeah, there's more to it than just the box score. So if the box score is saying, good, check, 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 but yet that player still isn't getting something, what do you think then is happening?
Well, I hate to say it, but I mean, to be very very honest, screws loose. I mean, it's it's just a simple point. If a player can't basically grasp the fact that, I mean, if they look at numbers surely alone, they look at the stats sheet, they see
Yep.
everything check check check, and yet at the end of the game, they just aren't in a mindset where they're winning or they're not learning in that process, then that practically means to me that they need to be taught how to mentally approach the game in a way
Mhm.
different manner. And that means taking away numbers from in front of them, make it less visible or make it relatable to them in such a way that, okay, you still make things sensible, but don't just rely on it, period.
Yeah.
Because again, if you constantly stick numbers into the faces of people, then this is what's going to happen. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just going to become number reliant constantly, and you take away the mental challenge of actually trying to reteach yourself how to appropriately compete in a game or compete as an athlete or even a
Mm,
student athlete to a point. I mean, it's funny. I had a player the other day come into the gym. They're a student athlete. They tell me that already have their Synergy account set up.
mm.
Dude, fine. You've got your Synergy account set up, fine. But don't just look at numbers, please. Are you watching games? Is
Yes.
that's the important part.
Yeah.
Because if you just get gobbled up into the numbers, then you're gonna get lost.
Yeah.
And suddenly a light bulb switches on.
Mm,
Oh yeah, coach, you're right. I'm not really watching games. I'm just looking at the numbers that are there.
yeah.
Do you understand the numbers that are there? No. Then
Yeah.
why are you looking at them?
To be honest, like I wasn't so fixed. Like as an athlete, if your numbers are not great or not, and then the numbers just really just tell you the truth and state the facts in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But I always, yeah, based it off of either game film, how I was feeling psychologically, how I was responding to the games, how coaches were getting on to me. So all these different types of metrics to use. It's just like how when people want to kind of see how much weight they lost, they tell trainers or personal trainers say, hey, just don't have the scale on the number tell you that. How do your clothes feel? How do you feel in other aspects of your life? Do you feel proud walking around? So it's the exact same thing with analytics here. And at the same time, like somebody could have the best yeah, numbers in the world, all that, but they could be the most horrific teammate. They could be a culture killer. Coach then goes away
Precisely.
from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is pretty cool how you kind of told that younger athlete, like, yeah, no, it's not just the numbers. They're a part of it, but don't get caught up into it. Just like how people want
Yep.
to get caught up in understanding the algorithm. You're not going to beat the algorithm. So
So for those of you that made it all the way to this point, thank you so very much for having joined us. Kerri, it's been really a pleasure to talk with you and gonna really love doing this on a very regular basis with you.
yeah,
With
definitely
that
going to have
said,
some good conversations. That's for sure.
no question about it. No question about it. So for our next episode, we're going to have a very special friend of ours, the person that actually brought us together, join us. And that's definitely going to be a very fun environment to have for sure. So Brianna Garza, the one and only, she recently made it over to the WNBA celebrity game for the first time in her career.
She
So
did. She
uh,
did.
we're gonna definitely grill her about that and see how she did during that game. I already saw
Yeah,
the
because I
celebrity game, so
yeah,
it was
I saw
yeah,
little highlights and she always claims that she can't move laterally, but I saw a little, slide by a little mini euro there. So I'm going to have to definitely say, hey man, somebody's been working on that lateral movement. So
yeah, precisely. She really got in gear to playing that game.
yeah.
So we're gonna definitely have her come on and then share her thoughts on what the current circumstances are about what we're going through and
Hmm.
how player development really is going through a phase currently. And obviously, we're going to definitely talk a lot about shooting when it's Brianna involved.
Yep.
And yeah, that is pretty much the end for this episode of ours. So thank you for joining in. For those of you that really also made it to this very, very point, please do make sure to subscribe. We're going to be on Spotify. We're already there, actually. And if you see us on YouTube or anywhere else, make sure to just subscribe all over there and then keep on following us. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Cheers.